Welcome to Woo Woo with Rachel Dratch, the podcast that explores the unexplained with humor and curiosity. Hello and welcome to Woo Woo with Rachel Dratch, here with Irene Bremis as always. Hi, Irene.
Hi, sweetie.
Hello, Irene. So the other day I'm flipping through New York Times, scrolling through New York Times, and I see an article and I was like, this is very woo-woo based. And then I wrote to the author of the article and instantly roped her in to be here with us. And you probably read, if you read the New York Times or you read books, you've probably read many of her pieces. And here she is. Please welcome Jessica Grose to the show. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So I read your stuff a lot. You pop up with all these kind of fun human interest articles that I've seen, a lot of stuff about moms that I've seen. And I know you've written books too.
I have. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Well, then
it's not fun, but I'm very proud. I'm very proud of them. It's too much work. That's why.
Okay.
But I'm very proud of the books that I've written.
Okay. Well, tell us the name of this article.
What I saw when I peeked over the edge of consciousness. So I have been reporting on Americans moving away from organized religion for the past 3 or 4 years. So this is one of the biggest societal changes that I felt was underreported. In the 1950s, 2% of people said they were atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, and now it's between 30 and 40%. But that doesn't mean that people aren't interested in spirituality or don't believe in God. So I've been doing all of these stories about different ways people express their beliefs and different ways of observing. And a reader wrote into me about a year ago saying, you should look into my organization. It is called the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And when she wrote to me, it was about a few days after their annual conference, which they have every year, and about 700 people come. And I was like, I got to go to this conference. And so it is a conference of researchers who study near-death and other extraordinary experiences. So the biggest one is called ADCs, or after-death communication. So that's the idea that the living can communicate with the dead in various ways. So it's researchers from major academic institutions, the biggest one being the University of Virginia. Then it is people who've had near-death experiences themselves. Then it is also people who are deeply in grief and really want to communicate or have communicated with their lost loved ones. And then it's a variety of sort of new age seekers. And I went to the conference in August and I talked to so many people and I was so deeply moved by what I found and I wrote about it. So that's that piece.
So, I mean, where do I begin with this? We've talked a little bit, as I mentioned to you. I'm friends with Ricky Stern, who did Surviving Death. So we had her on, and we've done like telepathy tape stuff, but we haven't really talked that much about. We've done a lot of like goofy ghost stories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we haven't done really like the scientific, in big quotes, but whatever. Like the more, like you said, UVA has a big department on this, and so this is kind of our like intro 101 to this world in a way. I'm glad we have a legit journalist here. I don't know if you call yourself a journalist or a writer, but where was this conference that you went to?
It was right outside Chicago. They have it in a different place every year. So it's just at a regular Hilton, it's nondescript, suburban. And it was really fascinating to see the sort of juxtaposition of people having really deep spiritual experiences and, this gross carpeting of
I've been there.
and like bright conference room lighting. It was surreal. But there were a lot of presentations from a lot of different, people who research it. And I should be clear, like I am a skeptic. I am not a believer, but I am fascinated and I have tons of friends who are believers and I am just endlessly interested in stories of alternative beliefs and religion and how people find meaning in their lives. So the research generally tends to be collect stories from people who have had near-death experiences and they compare it along this near-death experience scale, which was developed by a psychologist named Bruce Greyson. And there are 16 items in the scale. They include time speeding up, a life review, so going back through everything that's happened to you, a sense of peace, harmony, or light, separation from one's body. That means you're sort of hovering above yourself and seeing what's happening in your corporeal form. And then encountering a religious spirit, mystical being, or dead relative. Those are parts of this scale. And these near-death experiences, a lot of the cataloged ones have all of these things in common. And some people, I think, ended up more on this side of the ledger, think that there's neurological explanations, either that we already know or that we may know in the future, to explain why this is such a common trajectory of experience in near death. But a lot of people believe that it is proof that there is consciousness beyond what we know of life and death, or that it is proof that there is an actual afterlife.
And so you said that the groups of people at this conference were, to break it down in the main three categories, there's like people that had had near-death experiences, and then the scientists, and then the grievers. And I was sort of wondering, like, when you're going around this thing, like for the near-death experiencers, was it like sort of people sharing their stories like to a group, or was it more just like, oh, I feel so seen because I'm with other people that have had this, or people giving talks about their experience? Just to start with that.
I mean, there were so many panels. There was no way that I could attend them all. Like that at every hour, there were like 6 different panels going on. And a lot of them were people who were, in the parlance of the conference, it's experiencers. So a lot of people themselves who were experiences. So saying, this is what happened to me. This is how it changed my life. And if you walk up to any of them, they will just tell you the whole story. And they're really excited to share. The openness of every single person that I talked to was beautiful, truly. They just were so there to share. And that's obviously why people are so drawn to the conference, because there's such a sort of open-mindedness. And there actually were, this didn't end up in the piece, but there were signs up in a few places saying, like, I don't remember exactly the wording, but it was like, please don't get into politics.
Yes.
Like, just don't.
Yes.
All beliefs are welcome, but like, let's not start it right now, which I appreciated, because I think part of what people are looking for in this moment is something beyond just the day-to-day bad news that we see in the newspaper, right? It's something deeper. It's something more that they can understand about themselves or about their purpose in life. And so there was sort of a soft encouragement to stay away from, thorny cultural issues, perhaps, and just more about like sharing your personal experience and the other people sort of listening and accepting. And I saw that pretty much everywhere. There was really such a warmth to the experience in that way.
What were some of the near-death experiences you heard, like a specific one? Like, just to start with this group of the people, like, did you come out shifted? But I know like that entails all 3 groups of people to ask that big question at the end. But did any of the near-death experiences make you go like, oh my God, I can't wait to tell my friends this one? Or was it sort of like the cliches we hear about seeing a light,
Yeah, I mean, the one that stuck with me, just because it was a little funny, was one woman who got kicked in the head by a horse. She got kicked in the head by a horse when she was 12, and it totally changed her life. And now she is like a music therapist and a sound bath person. And the way she told her story was very like engaging. So she's the one that sticks out to me the most.
When she got kicked in the head, like, did she have a story about what did she see a light or whatever? Like
have a near
where
death?
did she go?
Yeah.
Where did she, or maybe nowhere? I don't know.
I'm trying to remember her specific experience. They do kind of run together because they are very similar to that scale. It is often a light. It is like communing with your grandparent. It is, I saw myself as a child walking down the beach. That was one that I heard that was from a really amazing guy named Chase. There were a lot of veterans involved with the conference. He had this near-death experience when he was in the military, when he was, I think, 18 or 19. And he described, have this vision of himself as a child walking down the beach and feeling like this sense of comfort. So, a lot of the stories did sort of run together. But that's sort of what is special about them, is that they are all similar, right? There is, which makes it feel like maybe there is this sort of singular experience that many people are having.
Right.
And it is, life-changing for many people. And I mean, not everyone. Again, there's not sort of a uniformity, but there was a lot of similarity.
Well, I have a question. I was going to say, I've been obsessed with near-death experiences for I think 30 years now. I'm just obsessed with it. I always find it really fascinating that they all have like very similar testimonies, like you said, and they're also, a lot of them are neurologically dead. They're literally physically dead, and they're having this experience that can't be explained often by science. And I think a lot of this, when I was reading your article, what really kind of like struck me is that you said that a lot of these people are turning away from traditional Christianity. Now, I was raised a Greek Orthodox, which is very similar to Catholic. We're taught to believe that there's a heaven and a hell, which sparked my interest into near-death experiences in the first place. And it's interesting that when you bring up these things to your pastor, which I've had deep debates with my pastor, they think it's like a ruse, like it's Satan, like they don't want to accept. It's really funny to me that the very people that are preaching there's a higher consciousness, there's a God, don't really want to believe that there's a living God with a higher consciousness when people are testifying to that. Even though it's written in the Bible, like, you know, St. John saw heaven, was shown heaven. People have seen angels. Enoch was taken to heaven out of body. There's a lot of these same similar experiences, but they've been taken out of the Bible. They weren't included into parts of the Bible. So I love that you were talking a lot about these Christian groups that are using organized religion to control people, but are really not, I don't know, they're not believing in what they're preaching in a sense.
I mean, I think it can be, not always. I mean, I think it depends on the denomination and the individual, faith leaders, but I think it can be quite threatening for people to have their own individual relationship with spirituality or with, a higher power that is beyond what the church is telling you to do. Mm-hmm. And we had sort of saw this historically there's a big burst of spirituality in the mid 19th century, kind of around the Civil War. People were really losing a lot of family members and they couldn't bury them because there was, it was happening, hundreds of miles away and there was no modern transportation. And they were looking for a way to sort of speak to these family members or sort of process their grief. And this was extremely threatening to a lot of mainstream denominations. And they really tried to snuff it out at the time. And it kind of lost popularity over time for a variety of reasons, because these things like go up and down in terms of belief and mainstream acceptance. But I think it can be very threatening. But I did talk to an Episcopal priest who was there, who was like a lovely guy. And he was saying he thought it's so important for mainstream denominations to be more accepting of these experiences and be more open to where their parishioners are rather than trying to, really put them in a box. Mm-hmm.
If you've been on social media lately, I'm sure you've heard people talk about the importance of gut health. But how do you actually get better gut health, especially in colder months? Brodo's Bone Broth. This podcast is sponsored by Brodo. Welcome to the hottest trend in nutrition for the last 2,000 years, bone broth. Brodo's bone broths are made from scratch. No concentrates, no preservatives, no shortcuts. So you get the best broth money can buy. My favorite flavor from the sampler pack Brodo sent me was good old-fashioned chicken. So good you can drink it on its own. Because Brodo makes bone broths that are delicious enough to drink. And each cup delivers whole food protein, about 10 grams per serving, along with collagen-building amino acids, electrolytes, and nutrients to support gut health, immunity, joint, skin, and general wellness, all under 50 calories and with zero sugar or fat. I first became aware of Brodo when I would see a giant line outside this little storefront in New York City, and I was like, what is all the fuss about here? Well, it was Brodo. And now Brodo has expanded, and you don't have to be in New York City. You don't have to wait in a line. Brodo can be delivered right to your door. Also, I love making soup, and Brodo broth takes soup to a whole new level. It has that homemade taste because it's real. And Brodo comes in 8 delicious flavors, including, I really want to try this one, ginger turmeric and coconut curry lime. Interesting. Also, I need more protein, and Brodo is the perfect way to get it. So shop the best broth on the planet with Brodo. Head to brodo.com/woo for 20% off your first subscription order and use code WOO for an additional $10 off. Once again, that's brodo.com/woo for 20% off your first subscription order and an additional $10 off if you use my promo code WOO. I was going to ask you about the scientists. I know there's some like big sort of head honchos in this field. And I guess a few of them were there who've written these sort of seminal books about these topics. But did you get the chance to hear any of them, or was it just like in terms of the scientific element of this?
Yeah, so I interviewed Bruce Grayson, who's one of the sort of main, he used to run the Department of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, which is sort of the main academic center for this research. I talked to him before I went to the conference, and I saw him at the conference, and then I talked to another scientist there for a long time. My interview with her did not end up in the piece, but her name is Marietta Peliavanova. And their sort of big point is you don't have to believe in what we're saying, but you have to take these people and these experiences seriously because they are so meaningful to the people who are having them. And if you do not take them seriously and you don't really help them through their grief and their sort of trying to get back to their lives, it's going to be really harmful for them. And I thought that was so true and so compelling because whether or not you have the typical near-death experience sort of trajectory and you see the light, almost dying is like a very intense experience for any human being. And to just sort of be gaslit and dismissed about, you know, what you feel about that experience is not helpful. So I was really moved by that. That was really such the main takeaway from them. It wasn't like you must agree that, you know, all of this research is true. And most scientists, when you interview them, are very, you know, caveated. They say like, well, this is only what we know from the research. They're not trying to proselytize. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to explain what they found and the sort of human impact on the people that they have talked to and studied.
But I was wondering, did anyone at this conference from the science background here give any sort of, well, here's what this could be, you know, physically, instead of, so I guess that wouldn't be the place to do it. But did you research that?
No, I mean, they did, only to say like, and that's wrong because like they definitely were not open to the idea that this could all be, they could be wrong about all of this.
Okay.
Right? And exactly as you say, like, it's not
the place.
Why would that be a big topic of discussion at this conference? That's not what it's about. But they definitely discussed it a little bit, only to say, and here's why that's not true.
Okay. And then what about the grievers and the idea of signs and connection between the living and dead? Like that's a whole other chapter of this group.
The reason I was so intrigued when I heard from this reader is because I had what they would call an after-death communication. And what I would say is just me dealing with unprocessed grief from when I was a kid. A good friend of mine died in a plane crash the summer after I graduated from middle school. So right after 8th grade, it was Flight 800, which is a very famous plane crash. Wow. She was on it with her parents. Oh, wow. It was awful. It was just so horrible. And she came to me in dreams periodically throughout my life. And she would be the same age as I was in these dreams. And she would always be flying above me. And she would say, "You're sad because you think I did not get to go to college, get married, have kids," like whatever I was doing at that time of my life. And she would say, "But I'm on some other plane and I'm getting to do all these things. So that should make you feel better that I am getting to have this life." And the dream was the same every time. And I had never told almost anybody about it. I'd never talked about it, but it had really affected me, these dreams. And I started talking about it constantly at the conference because it was a way to connect with the people who were there and saying, even if my explanation for this experience is not spiritual, I can completely understand how it could be, right? And that I wish that it were true. I wish that she was getting some kind of other existence on a different spiritual plane. That would be amazing. So that was sort of my way in emotionally to something that I'm not sure I actually believe in, but I could really connect with people about their stories and hearing how they had loved ones show up for them. And so the one couple that I talked to there just absolutely broke my heart. They had lost a child, and they showed me the picture of going to visit their grave, and there was her name. It really did look like her name written in melted snow. Her name was Mia. And they showed me the picture, and it did look like her name, and they had seen that when they went to visit her on the year anniversary of her death. And so that's unforgettable. That's just totally moving and touching. And whether or not anybody believes that that is her communicating, like, who cares what I believe or anybody, it was so beautiful for them and so helpful in their deep, just, I know your parents, like that kind of grief is unimaginable to me. And so just talking to them was really profound and beautiful.
I mean, in a way, you're right. You're so right. And it's a way of healing for them, of course,
Exactly.
Wow.
I feel like when we first started doing this, like this whole signs thing, I was really skeptical about. But then, well, first of all, I got my own sign, which I've talked about on the show. Like 2 years into doing this podcast, I got a pretty big sign. And then I read that book, Signs, by Laura Lynn Jackson. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
But there's like very specific, like the stories in there are they're just so specific that you're like, I feel like it's more, for lack of a better word, fun to be open to. It's more like, why not? It could make you happier to be open to it. And I also feel like Irene and I have talked about this before.
True.
But like the more that you open up to the whole like woo woo of it all, I feel like the more you'll see. Like the more,
You're an
of
antenna.
course we don't want to be thought of as cuckoos, but it's still, I don't know. I feel like the more you're open to it, the more you'll actually notice.
Which makes sense, because if you're closed off, you're not going to see anything. But if you're open, you're willing to receive, So you're not going to see any of this or make any connections if you're not open, period. You have to be open.
I had no idea cotton and satin were causing frizz and sleep creases until I switched to Blissy silk pillowcases. I know, it sounds like magic that I'm talking about, but this is no woo-woo solution. Silk pillowcases are actually better for your hair and skin. You'll see healthier skin in weeks because you know what? Silk pillowcases help prevent breakouts. It's true. And better hair in days. Silk pillowcases reduce frizz, breakage, and preserve styles and colors. And coincidentally, my hairstylist actually told me to use silk pillowcases without even knowing that I'm talking about them right here. Plus, silk has added benefits. Silk is naturally cooling, and I can attest to that. The pillowcases stay super cool, breathable, hydrating, and they're hypoallergenic. But wait, what if I told you that they are also easy to care for because they're fully machine washable? I'm not kidding. Fully machine washable. And they come in over 100 colors with new Wicked and Harry Potter designs. And wait a minute, for you woo-woo fans, a Zodiac collection. Sign me up for Pisces now. Also, Blissy makes a perfect, practical, and loved gift. Perfect for birthdays, bridal showers, anniversaries, and more. And there's additional products. Yeah, I ordered a sleep mask too, and I love it. And because you're a listener, Blissy is offering 60 nights risk-free, plus an additional 30% off when you shop at blissy.com/woopod. That's BLISSY.com/woopod. And use code WOOPOD to get an additional 30% off. Your skin and hair will thank you. When you would have that dream, like, did you wake up sort of with a feeling of comfort, or?
No, I woke up with a feeling of despair, just so sad.
Oh,
I mean, my older daughter is now in 8th grade, and I just look at her, and we were babies, I was always so upset by the dream, but weirdly, or maybe it makes complete sense, like I found the comfort in telling the people at that conference about it, and I haven't had that dream since.
Wow.
It always happened irregularly, but I don't know if something was sort of released by telling people about it, but I wish that it had been comforting. It was so sad to me, and I think made me also miss her. You know, like maybe if it was, you know, like I said, I'm a skeptic. I think it was just me dealing with my grief. But when I would wake up from it, I would just be like, I'm so sad I didn't get to actually grow up with you in this way that we could have. So I wish it had given me comfort.
Wow. But it's interesting that when you shared it, it was kind of release. That's like, it's so beautiful in a sense, you know? It's amazing.
Yeah, and it made me, and I talk about this in the piece, but like it made me remember all of these things that I had totally forgotten about spending time at her house. I slept over at her house every Friday night. Like, do you remember being a middle school girl and just like sleeping over the same friend's house every single week? I grew up in a really small town, and my mom could not sew for shit. She was just a disaster at crafting. And my friend's mom had sewed me a Halloween costume one year. And I had totally forgotten that. And I had all of these, when I was telling people about these dreams, I had all of these memories kind of rush back that I hadn't thought about in 30 years. Like, you know, sitting at her kitchen table and, you know, just all these sort of flashes of memory. And that was amazing to have. Like, I really appreciated bringing all this stuff up that, like, again, and this is another sort of reason I really want to write about this. Like, in day-to-day life, there's so few chances to talk about this stuff without either sounding crazy or like you're wallowing in the past. It's like, there's no space for it, I think, in our day-to-day culture, and people really need it.
That's why we're providing this platform right here.
Right. Doing hashtag God's
Doing
work.
the Lord's work.
Exactly.
God's work, sweetie.
But I am wondering, like, in terms of your friend and having gone to this conference now, which was in August, you said?
It was Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
So it was like a long weekend.
I was wondering if now having gone, like, would you see or ask for or whatever, some sort of other sign, like move into some other, for lack of a better word, like relationship with either her or your grief around it. And you did it sort of like spur you into some other way of thinking, or was it more just observing and collecting?
I think it was really cathartic. And I think it made me think really differently about grief than I had previously. And I should say, so my parents are both retired doctors, and they were both very sort of rationalistic and not woo-woo, as the title of your podcast. But my mom has always had sort of these flashes of sort of like touching the beyond, is I guess how I would put it. So there's been a couple times where she's woken up in the middle of the night and thought about someone, and it's like the moment that they died. And she had some, I can't remember the details of it, but she had some experience when my grandmother was dying, which made her sort of feel like something was happening. And my husband's grandmother just died, and which is like kind of incredible. Like, who in their 40s has their grandmothers?
I was thinking it.
He had two he had two grandmothers actually that I got to know really well. They were both like incredible women. And the grandmother who just died within the past year, her grandchildren, in the moment that they heard, they were at a restaurant when they heard about her death. And a song came on that they had, I can't remember, it was like they had listened to with her or they associated with her, like in the moment that they had heard about her death.
Wow.
And they felt very much that was, you know, a sign, a communication from her. And well, the other amazing thing about her is she and her husband were super into Est in the 70s, which like, I have always been fascinated by, fringe groups and outside belief systems. And I think Est did not sort of end well for the people who did it.
I think so, yeah.
Who got like really into it.
Yeah.
But, she was always very into sort of the whole other world.
Well, and the synchronicity, which I'm going to drop the Jung here. No, but you mentioned that in your in the article about Carl Jung and synchronicity and these, like, even something just like hearing that song when the grandmother died. I'm just trying to throw an intellectual bent onto this.
Yeah. So synchronicities are meaningful coincidences. They're not just random. They have some sort of greater meaning in terms of, you know, you're making meaning of your own life or sort of the greater energy of the universe. He was really processing these ideas in the last years of his life. So the fathers of modern psychiatry and psychology were very interested in extraordinary occurrences, or, there's sort of different lingo that they use to describe what these things are, but sort of consciousness outside our day-to-day consciousness. So Freud was really interested in all of these things, and you can see in their writings and diaries. I mean, I did months of research about all of this. And again, the history of it is really, really fascinating. So if you're a huge dork like me, you will enjoy.
Wait, can I ask you for myself and for listeners, what are some books that you read for your research that you would recommend? Because I know you mentioned a few.
Yeah, my favorite that I read, which is a historical book, which was out of print. So I had to comb the depths of Amazon to order it.
Okay.
But it was called In Search of White Crows.
In Search of White Crows?
Yes, In
Search of White Crows. Okay.
And the subhead is Spiritualism, Parapsychology, and American Culture.
Okay.
And it is by an academic named R. Moore. That was the most helpful to me. But then I just, I read all of the books by the major figures. So I read Raymond Moody's book. His book, Life After Life, is sort of considered the foundational text of the International Association of Near-Death Studies. It was sort of one of the first mainstream books. I read Bruce Grayson's books. I read sort of all of the major near-death experience books and research on that. And then I read Jung. I read Freud. I read their diaries and letters. I read, what else? I think that is most of it. There's a point when you're a journalist and you're doing research where you're like, I could literally research this for the rest of my life and write a thesis about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because you have other things to do, you have to keep it moving and finish at some point. But it just is it's sort of endlessly interesting because it's not just about the beliefs themselves, but it's how they interact with culture.
Right.
Because all of our religious observances are relational. They're not just about ourselves. They're about how we're interacting with other people in the world around us and how we're making meaning of the things that are happening.
Good hair days do more than we give them credit for. When your hair feels healthy, you show up differently. You're more confident, more relaxed. You're not constantly checking mirrors or adjusting your hair. Your hair becomes one less thing competing for your attention throughout the day. And Nutrafol supports hair health from within, working overtime to deliver results you can see and feel, so your hair becomes something you enjoy, not something you stress about. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested to measure improvements in hair growth, quality, and strength. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages like postpartum or menopause, and lifestyle factors such as a plant-based diet. So you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Just order online, no prescription needed. With automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20% and get added perks to support your hair health journey. So let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code WOO. That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code WOO. So you were saying you grew up in Irvington?
I grew up in Irvington, which is a suburb of New York City in Westchester County. I was joking that I am just a Jewish American princess from Westchester. That is who I am, very proudly. But in my hometown, which is tiny, I mean, when I lived in it, I think more people live there now. But when I grew up in Irvington, I think 6,000 people live there, 7,000. It's small. And one of the residents of my hometown was Reverend Moon, who was the head of the Unification Church. It was offensive to them, but they are known in popular culture as Moonies.
Yes. This was very 70s, right?
Very
I remember
70s.
this. And they did the group marriages.
Group marriages.
That's right.
So in my hometown, at the public school that I went to, I would say about 5 to 10% of every grade was kids who belonged to the Unification Church.
Wow.
And some of them lived in sort of regular family units, and some of them lived in like dorms, basically. Like their parents weren't with them.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
This is the next article, by the way, but go ahead.
I wrote about it for New York Magazine, a short thing when he died.
Okay.
About just like, so there were all of these sort of unexplained things. Like his daughters were like on my soccer team. Like it's so weird being like the guru's daughters are on my AYSO team. Like,
wow, that's crazy. What were they like? I need to know.
Sweet. They were sweet, normal, you know, like I was very close with a girl who was a member of the church, and there was like so much stuff that she wasn't allowed to do. Like she wasn't allowed to like go to dances. And, you know, there's a book called In the Shadow of the Moons, which is was written by an older church member, so probably she's in her 50s or 60s now. But she was married off to one of Reverend Moon's sons when she was a teenager. So she was like taken out of school. And like, yeah, it's wild. But I feel like that started my lifelong like interest in what other people believed, and had all these questions about how they were raised and like why is she having this totally different experience than I am, and a sort of openness to, because I think I interviewed one of my classmates who sort of wasn't really part of the church anymore but had grown up in it, and he was like, yeah, it was like pretty normal for a lot of us. It wasn't like freak stuff. Like I think a lot of people think that it was like this weird, horrible experience, but like he also was one of the ones who was raised with his family. He wasn't raised sort of like separately. It's a whole thing. Like, yes, books can and have been written about this church, but I think that was sort of the spark of my interest in alternative beliefs and things outside the mainstream.
Wait, so you said some kids living in dorms, they went to your school too?
Yeah.
Whoa. So they didn't have like parents around?
They lived in like a communal setting, and they had guardians, but their parents were like on missions, like elsewhere, sort of trying to proselytize outside the US. And it was just like the adults didn't talk about it. It wasn't like I asked my parents about it. It was sort of like, I think the silence around it and the sort of unspoken, like, this is different from us, but like nobody wants to talk about it because nobody wants to call it a cult because that's pejorative. You know, it was very like nobody wanted to explain to kids what was going on with our friends, because we were, you know, everybody was friends. It was a tiny, like my graduating class from my public school, I think we had 82 kids. My brother's year was like 79 kids. Like it's small. You know everybody. You know all these kids really well. Wow. So I think that sort of vacuum of explanation and information.
Now these kids, were they like arranged marriages? Like how did that work in terms of the internal?
I graduated from college in the year 2000. I think by the time I graduated, the religion was sort of losing its grasp. So I feel like I don't know what happened to them. I have no idea. I've looked on LinkedIn for some, like I've deep Googled many of them, and I don't know if they were still doing the arranged marriage. I mean, it's sort of a core tenet of the religion, at least in the 70s and 80s. So like, I can only assume that at least a few of them did, but I don't know.
And for anyone that doesn't know, what I remember is they would do these giant arranged marriages like in stadiums, right?
Yeah. So Madison Square Garden was the biggest one. And basically the head of the religion, who was Reverend Moon, he would pair people off. Like, so he would say, like, you and you're getting married. Like, and so it was all decided by the church leaders. And the idea was like, if you had this sort of sanctified marriage, you would ascend to heaven. Again, fact check me. I'm pretty sure this is now reporting I did like 15 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that was the promise.
At what age can the age minimum that somebody could be?
Well, so if you read this book, In the Shadow of the Moons, so the author is Nan Suk Hong. She was taken out of school and married to one of his sons. This was in the 80s when she was like 16. So again, I don't think that they agreed with what she published in this book. I think they probably disputed a lot of what was published in this book. And I talked to teachers and guidance counselors from my high school, and they said that the kids, that would happen, that, you know, teenagers would be in class one day and then have disappeared. Like they would just be gone. And the school didn't know what had happened to them. So again,
Wow.
Wow.
would have to go do the sort of deep reporting that I had done, 10 to 15 years ago. But yeah, that was sort of the beginning of my interest in all of this.
I love a cult doc.
I know.
Yeah, me too.
I can't believe there hasn't been one about the moons.
I'm not calling them a cult. I don't know what we call them, but I know. I mean, so it's so hard for me to focus these days and have an attention span. But a cult doc will always hold my attention.
Well, what's also fascinating about them is they were really smart and they had a lot of businesses. And so for a while, they were like importing all of the sushi grade fish into the United States.
Wow.
So they had a way to sort of perpetuate their wealth and perpetuate the organization without necessarily, without gaining more adherents. Because I don't think that they were ever like a huge going concern in anywhere.
Right.
But they were, for a while in the, I think, 70s and 80s, a very big deal.
I really like to cook when I have the time. I like flipping through recipes, hand-picking ingredients from my local farmer's market. Yeah, all that. I even find it kind of relaxing. But that's when I have the time, because I don't always have the time to manifest that vision. And that's when I use Tovala. This podcast is sponsored by Tovala. Tovala is a smart meal delivery service, fresh meals, and a smart oven that, wait a minute, does the cooking for you. Yes, it's true. And Woo Woo listeners can get a Tovala smart oven for just $49 plus free shipping when you order meals 6 or more times. Just go to tovala.com/woo and use my code WOO. Tovala makes it so easy. You just scan the meal's QR code. It's very much like the future. You pop it in the oven. It cooks everything perfectly. And while I might let mealtime slide for myself sometimes, I do have a teen that I need to feed, and Tovala makes that extra easy. He likes meat dishes, which I'm not that much of a fan of, even less a fan of cooking them. Just yesterday, he had filet mignon and creamy peppercorn sauce with buttery roasted root vegetables. Was it a fine restaurant? No, it was Tovala, but it tasted like a fine restaurant. Also, as a growing boy, he often has his after-school dinner and his later in the evening dinner. And I love having at least one of those dinners be a Tovala meal. Tovala Smart Oven isn't just for their meals. You can use the oven to scan store-bought groceries like Eggo waffles, Pillsbury cinnamon rolls, and Amy's frozen meals, to name just a few. It knows how to cook them, too. And for a limited time, because you're a Woo Woo listener, you can get a Tovala Smart Oven for just $49 plus free shipping when you order meals 6 or more times. Just go to tovala.com/woo and use my code WOO. That's a $49 Tovala Smart Oven when you head to tovala.com/woo and use promo code WOO. One last time, that's TOVALA.com. And make sure you use my promo code WOO. Remember, with Tovala, dinner is taken care of. Well, Jess,
I know what she's thinking.
We've covered the Moonies and all manner of near death. Well, not all manner. We just scratched the surface of near death.
You could have 15 episodes about near death experiences and after death communication. There's so much. Again, and like, I think what's great about it is that you don't have to believe in it to find it really interesting and valuable and telling about people and their experiences of life.
Yeah.
And that I could have gone to 10 more conferences with these.
But so after you got back, you didn't feel like a shift or anything, said Rachel,
and I'm like,
looking
honestly,
for her angle. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not trying to force the
I'm
show.
kind of disappointed in myself because I was kind of hoping that I would come away with it with some like spiritual revelation, but my skeptical like reporter mind just like can't. But in a way, I wonder if I would be a happier person because it's like I can't let it in. It's like I almost feel like the gate drops at some point where I'm just like, no.
Right.
And like, I think in some ways that's a good instinct because you don't want to be taken in by like every story that you hear and you have to like, the joke about reporters is like, even if your mother says she loves you, get a second source, right? Like, it's like we're trained to really
that's
like
good. That's good.
And
Yeah. And I think that that's good for me to do. But at the same time, like there's no release from that. Right. So I did have this visual in my head. It was like every time my mind would start wandering down the path, it would just be like, nah, like, in a medieval castle when like the gates
just drop. I saw that same gate just now as you were describing.
That's interesting because I wonder, to get all woo-woo here, if your exercise for yourself is to like, what happens if I don't drop the gate? Where does my mind go? Where does my spirit go? If I
actually think it holds me back in a lot of things, not just spiritually. It's like I can be like one of my New Year's resolutions was actually to be less critical of myself and others and the world. And so I feel like it is a thing that holds me. It is a strength and a weakness, right? Like it makes me good at my job, but then also holds me back from things.
Right.
Irene and I are not held by any journalistic integrity.
Not at all.
And we'll believe it all, hook, line, and sinker.
All of it. Just hook us and
wait, can I tell you a little story, though? So I did this thing called the Hoffman Institute, which that's a whole other episode that we've never done. But anyway, they did this thing. It was sort of like self-exploration, whatever. But they did this thing, and I don't meditate. They did a kind of guided journey, right? And it's not my usual thing at all. And it's like, it probably took an hour or something, which felt like an eternity. And they're guiding you through, and like you're picturing yourself like walking through the woods, and like it's a very long thing. But anyway, then they say like you come upon your spirit guide now, okay? And I had no idea how to picture my spirit guide. But anyway, I just ended up just picturing this, like, I'm abbreviating the story, but I ended up picturing this giant blue kind of glowing dot. And I was kind of joking afterwards with the other people there, like, I was just picturing a dot, But then years later, I went to this, now I sound like I'm doing all the things, but I went to this channeler person, and she said, you're guided by the spirit of the blue dot.
Wow.
Like, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That she said that years later. I'd never talked about it. And she said, you're guided by the spirit of blue dot. All this is just to say that I opened the gate. I know I never like figured out what the blue dot meant, if the blue dot's hovering behind me right now or anything. Right. But I kind of like trying to get out of the comfort zone.
That's right.
Whatever.
Well, Jess, you did good just by opening up about your dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
that's
baby
true.
steps for you because
Thank you.
you allowed yourself to be open and take in other memories. It was sort of like a life review of your friendship with this woman. So in many ways, you were, that kind of permeated your gate. The gate was breachable.
I like that reframing. That's really lovely. Thank you for giving that to me.
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah.
Well, did you see that we do a little pendulum reading? You might not have seen that part of things.
I did. I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
There goes your journalistic career.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, sweetie.
And now I feel like saying, like, Jess, we're really not crazy. We just like talking about this stuff.
No, so one of my good friends is believes everything that you've discussed here. She loves it. She loves every one of it. And I actually had her read the piece before it ran and I was like joking that she was my spiritual sensitivity reader because I was like, is this like, do you feel like I got this right? Do you feel like I was, open to, and I really, so I welcome the experience if even inside I'm like dying.
Wow. Well, now wait, before we do the Penji, what are you working on now? Like, what's your next, like, how does the life of the New York Times journalist work? Like, are you already on to the next, like, what's next?
Oh my gosh, I have to write constantly. So, I mean, I have a very particular job. So I'm an opinion and I have scheduled piece running basically every Wednesday and Saturday. Like I have to write twice a week about, what's going on in the world, like not the spiritual world, the actual world.
Yeah.
So I'm just constantly writing. I mean, my story running, I don't know when this is going to run, but like my story tomorrow is about, did you know that 40% of women ages 15 to 44 said they would leave the country permanently if given the opportunity, which is like,
they need to hike up that number. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Okay, what about us?
Yeah, exactly. So I talked to some people who are considering leaving the country, and the frame that I talked to them about was gun violence because I'm again, a very sort of rationalistic, numbers, cold-minded person about some things. And I'm like, I can think and be comforted by the idea that like, there's an infinitesimal chance that my kids are going to die in a school shooting today when they leave the house, right? Like there's more of a chance they're going to get hit by a car when they cross the street. And so I can have to read the news because it's my stupid job, which like some days I'm just like, I don't want to know any of this.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to be aware of all these things that are happening constantly, and it does wear on you.
Yes.
And so I could always sort of just be like, okay, I am comforted by the statistics that I know that it is very, very unlikely that this will happen to them. But then the shooting at Brown University, I went to Brown.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like it just felt like the circle was drawing in closer. And so I had started reporting it earlier this week. And then that poor woman in Minnesota was murdered. And so it's talking to women who are thinking about leaving the country because of gun violence specifically.
Wow.
What a cheerful topic. I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, this is on all of our minds. Like,
Yes.
I'm always like, as a comedy person, I don't like post about this stuff, but it's like on my mind, like
Nonstop.
24/7. So it's like, it's not like you're, giving us feelings we don't already have going on.
I know.
Yeah.
It's funny. My friends will be like, I'm so sorry I haven't been reading you. I've been avoiding the news. And I'm like, there are many days I regret this career choice.
Right.
Like, I don't want to read the news. It's my job. Like, it's.
Yeah, I feel you. It's a lot. Rachel here is my therapist / dear friend / my sensitivity reader right there.
Well, same. Back at
That's
you.
lovely.
Couldn't get through any of it without her, because we need that
we're all relying on
camaraderie.
our buddies.
Yeah.
Well, a more fun thing that I'm thinking about, but I haven't.
yeah.
This is like hot off the presses. I haven't told anyone about this, but I'm like, again, I'm like a columnist. I have to write about trends. So, you know how young people aren't having sex anymore?
Yes.
Older people aren't having sex either, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, so a friend of mine who is a college professor was telling me that some of the young women she teaches in a sort of like humanities class were telling her that like they don't want to have sex because their beauty routines at night are so elaborate. It's like they've already put all this stuff on their face and they've like taped their mouths shut. And I'm like, I don't even know what that's for. And it's like they're so fixated on the artifice and they're so afraid to like look unattractive that it's like desexualizing them and making them like, it's like, who is this even for? Like, I'm too exhausted to actually engage.
Wow.
So this is an idea I'm just like obsessed with. I'm just like, this is sad for you guys and you should not be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So that's another
But
thing
it definitely
I'm just
sounds
thinking
like a
about.
more, I mean, I know not like fun, but more like interesting, fun, like light. I know it's like talking about a big societal trend, but it sounds interesting and a little lighter.
It's a nice detour from reality.
Yes, a detour. And I'm also just like, I want to free the young women.
Yes.
Like I want to free them from the tyranny of taping their mouths shut for beauty. Like, why are you doing that? Don't do that.
Oh my, that sounds like torture.
Quick sidebar that I was going to ask you at the beginning. I forgot to, but how did you get into being a writer? Like, is that something you wanted to do when you were really little, or did it like come about later? Or?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a writer. Thank God I have succeeded in my career because I have no other talents. Like, it just would be really curtains for me. So yeah, I mean, I was an English major, which everyone makes fun of, but it was, the only thing I really loved. I always read. I just read endlessly as a kid and loved to write. And so went to college knowing that it's what I really wanted to do, moved to New York straight out of undergrad. And, my first job out of undergrad was at Spin magazine. So I thought I would be more of a culture critic or a music critic. And then I realized pretty quickly that when you start doing that for a living, it makes you hate music.
Right.
Like it
becomes a job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I want and it also is so confining if you're just doing like one thing. And I've always been kind of a generalist and had tons of interests and fascinations. And so, yeah, that's where it started. But I never wanted to do anything else. And I'm very grateful every day to have a good job doing what I want to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's time for your pendulum reading, Jess. So you think of your question and then you're going to reveal it after we give you your answer. Yes or no question. And we usually tell people don't ask anything that's going to make really bum you out if it gives the wrong answer that you don't want. But who knows? It's just a pendulum. So feel free to go for it. But anyway, okay, are you thinking of your question?
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
So low stakes.
Okay. Here we go. That's okay. So
Yeah.
I got a yes.
I got a yes.
What was your question, Jess?
Will the Clippers win tonight?
Oh, okay. This
We're
is like quantifiable.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
we'll
so
know
I don't know.
tonight.
Now, I don't know when this is going to air, but today that we're taping this is, what day is it? January 9th. So Penji is going to get tested on if the Clippers win tonight.
Okay, good.
All right.
'Cause
We'll
fans
see.
I
want to
asked
know.
because I'm going to the Clippers versus Nets tonight, and my brother-in-law works for the Clippers. So shout out to Judd for getting us those tickets.
All
and I
right.
was just like, what is the nearest term thing?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, when I see if the Clippers win, I'll think of you.
That's right.
Okay.
Jess, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your experience at the conference for the International Association of Near-Death Studies. I think, Irene, we might have to go and check it out next time they meet.
Yes, I would love to.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jess. This has been amazing. And your article was sensational. It really was amazing.
Well, thank you.
And you can find me on Instagram at Ray Dratch. That's RAE Dratch. And you can find Irene at Irene Bremis. That's BREMIS Bremis. And thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of woo-woo. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Woo-woo with Rachel Dratch is a Q-Code production. Executive produced by David Henning and Steve Wilson. Produced by Alexa Gabrielle Ramirez. Edited by Will Tendy.